is a 1922 Ford. It was purchased by the John Wanamaker estate. What Wanamaker wanted originally was a truck for his gardener and the crew to be able to take the crew around in the back, and the gardener had his own truck to move around. So Henry Ford would sell lots of different vehicles without the body, which he did with Wanamaker. It came to the Wanamakers. They had someone else in Pennsylvania build the wooden body onto it in 23, and that was put together, and it worked there on the estate for probably 30 years as far as we can trace. We've lost track of who owned it in between, but we found it in a used car lot, and it was there on consignment. And actually I saw a picture of something else that I was looking at and saw this sitting behind it, and wound up chasing it down with the salesman, and he couldn't believe anybody was really wanting to buy it. So we were very happy to buy it. Brought it back when we were living in Connecticut and had some really talented young mechanics work on it, rewired it. The wiring was eaten by the mice and all kinds of things like that. We put safety brakes on it and did a number of modifications to it. And let me explain safety brakes. Safety brakes, Henry Ford, when he built it, the transmission was made out of leather bands. So you had forward, you had brake, and you had reverse inside the transmission. So we replaced all those belts, but the brakes was just one little brake in the back, and living in New England on hills, we decided to put disc brakes on the back for safety purposes on it. But more in the history of the car, it was lost somewhere along the line. The estate lost track of it, probably sold, and turned up after, it looks like 2 or 3 owners had it, and we think it's mostly original, and we're pleased with that, except for the paint job that someone did on it. Everything else seems to be original, other than replacement parts that we've had to put on it because they didn't work. We had to find something to do it. But there's a great cottage industry out there that makes nothing but parts for all kinds of cars like this, whether it's a Packard or a Model T. They make all kinds of great things. So the restoration was actually very straightforward and very easy, and we're very pleased with it. We moved it down here, and it's happy down here because everything is flat, it has no hills to challenge it. I don't have to worry about going down hills and stopping, so it's a fun little car to drive around, and it still works. I take it to Waterfall Farms, and it carries shovels and leaf blowers, and then we go down to the native plant project, and we do the same thing there. So I intend it not to be a show car. I intend it to be a real working, back to its early days in gardening and whatnot. So that's the story of this 1922 Model T.
What's the story with the starting mechanism?
In 22, there was an option that was offered on electric start. So they had to put it in. There's a button on the floor to be able to do it. You can still hand crank it. I've never done it because there's all kinds of stories about broken wrists that happen when it snaps back on you. So I rely on the electric start, and that's been great for us.
What year was the first Model T?
I'm going to say 1915. That's called the brass era. That's when all those beautiful cars, the brass cars were around, and the big windshields on them. And then Henry started getting very serious about volume production and cost per unit and driving the cost down. So little by little, the brass went away, and these are now called the black era cars, and that happened in around 21, somewhere in that era. The wheels are still wood, oak. I think they're the originals, but it's hard to date, who's done what to the car. But that's certainly the way that it looked when it was born and brought down here. The other thing that Wanamaker did, Wanamaker had a delivery fleet for his department store, and he would buy, in volume, he would buy probably 20 of the trucks without bodies, cars without bodies, then have the same body maker put delivery bodies on the back of it. The thing is, Wanamaker, I guess, was not the world's greatest employer, so the driver and the helper didn't get a windshield, and they got chains in the back, and they were expected to go out. There's no heat, and they were expected to go out and make their deliveries in the winter no matter what. So he was a tough guy. Most of them are built with wooden windshields on it, and this was one of the few that that I found. That's the reason I liked it so much. That has the original windshield and allowed for the top to be open on it.
What kind of lights are they?
These two lights here were originally designed to burn whale oil. I guess that was the popular fuel at the time. And this was its reserve down here, and there'd be a wick, and you would light it, and that was ventilation. I've not done that, and most people burn kerosene when they do it. And we have electric lights in the front that are they're a little moody. When they want to work, they come on, and I got to change light bulbs now on it. But again, all the parts are readily available. And the name Depot Hack. The other hotels at the time would want to pick up their guests at the railroad station. And in a regular car, you couldn't get all of the luggage and whatnot in. So the Depot Hack would go down. Some of them had rows in the back where guests could get in. And they would pick them up at the railroad station, hence the term Depot and Hack to be able to bring them back. That name stuck for a long time. But this is the original station wagon, which became the original SUV and so on. That's its lineage.
Does that horn work?
Oh, yeah. Let me pull this back and we'll start. Okay, that's there's the configuration of the pedals is this is the brake, which we're used to the middle pedal being the brake. This is reverse, and this is the clutch that engages its low speed forward, and then when you want to go on the highway, you push this all the way forward and let the clutch out, and you're in high gear at that point, and you're driving along. So usually when you come to a stop sign or something, you got to pull it back to neutral, slow yourself down, and it's a learning curve to get to use, and it's not traffic friendly. So
What is the top speed?
I'm gonna guess. What I've read is that some of them would go 30, 35. I've never really wanted to do that in a car. It gets a little shaky. So 25. Our speed limit here is absolutely perfect for this car. It's happy. Okay, what I've read is this is a flathead Ford 4-cylinder, 25 horsepower. Henry resisted going to more powerful cars, even though there were big V8s and not V8s, but straight 8s and other larger engines out there. And his rationale was, this has worked fine, we don't need to change it. The younger Henry came along and finally won the battle, and the compromise with his dad was that they would use this basic engine to make a V8. So they took this, leaned it this way, and they took a second one and leaned it that way. So you then had the functioning V8. Unfortunately, you had to have 2 water pumps, and it always overheated in the beginning on it because you were putting 2 water pumps into 1 radiator to cool it down on it. So, but it was still a very popular and powerful engine. It worked well.
Well, that's the Flat 8 and all the hot rods. Huh?
Yeah. The old flathead V8 Ford 32.